when we start looking at the post-awakening and all that, I normally work with the 4 deaths. Okay, so 4 deaths, very briefly. The first death is when you get born. So you go from soul, and that has to die, and you have to come down into the 3D, into like a very limited thing with a veil, and you forget everything. And so yeah, you're on the earth now, confused. Before you die and come on the journey, so think about our story. You're there in perfection, in heaven, you can call it, or whatever you want, a home. You're sitting there all huge and wide and big. And then that all has to die to come into this body. The idea, the perception dies, not the physical thing. The soul doesn't get chopped and then you're a human. But that whole memory and great expanse of who and what you are has to come down into this physical body, and you forget everything.
You're newborn.
You know nothing. You remember nothing. You can't even speak. You can't even think. So you can't even
try and remember.
Try and tell a story. If I just came down here, I was in this big place. Now I'm in this little place. You can't. There's no words for that kind of stuff. So that concept of those memories and things disappears. In other words, they die. So you're fresh, open, with no baggage. Right. Then you go through life, so you're trapping through the forests and stuff. And when you hit the dead end, what people normally call the dark night of the soul, but I call it the dark night of the ego. Because that's the ego. It's tried everything. It's gone different routes. It's picked up pain. It's discovered hurt. It's built up defense mechanisms. It's picked up belief systems from all over the place.
And good stuff.
And good stuff. Yeah, belief system is positive, negative, life, love, kids, whatever, partners, joy, fun, but also all the other stuff. So addictions, like pain, trying to get away from diseases, all kinds of things happens on that road. But the ego thinks it all happens to me. I did this, I got a degree, I had kids, they divorced me, blah, 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 all the other stuff that's so you the center point of the universe, because you don't know better. Because as from the baby, all it can see is what comes into the senses. And that's all that we can perceive at that level, is just what comes into what ourselves see, smell, feel. Are you talking to me? Who are you talking to? Are you listening, or whatever? So it's very me or egocentric. So that's why I call it the dark night of the ego. Because when we go into the darkness, depression, all those kind of things, when we have the business and we think, okay, now what? If we have the money, we go, now what? And we have the kids and we go, now what? And we had the cars and the bikes and whatever, we go, now what?
Something missing.
Something missing. And that nagging feeling is always something missing, something more. I'm not worth it, all that kind of stuff. So all of those things build up. So fear and self-loathing in 3D starts happening. And then when you hit the end of the road, you go into serious depression stages or existential crises. Well, sometimes it's not really that bad. Sometimes it's just, let's take some shrooms and see what happens. And then a whole lot of things happen, or whatever it is. It's go on ayahuasca journey. That sounds like fun. Let's just go grab some DMT or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, bang, the whole ego dissolves. So that's the ego death. That's the second death. And we call that enlightenment or awakening or self-realization or whatever it is. You have many names for it. Or just a very powerful experience on whatever psychedelic or meditation or hypnosis session, or just naturally. You're just sitting on the sun, like watching the sunset, and all of a sudden you just become one and you experience that oneness. So according to the story, that's that puzzle that pops up and becomes very real, and you remember that you're home. You remember what you are beyond the ego. So that's second death. And now what you normally expect after that is like, okay, cool, I know what I am. This huge, infinite being, unconditional love, pure light, all the rest. But here we are back in the 3D. So that's when the puzzle falls apart and you're sitting with the pieces. Now you have to sit with those pieces. So you've got the roadmap, you had the remembrance. Now, how do you get back to that? And there's generally two ways that we try to do that. The one will be up and out. So we look outside for ourselves, we're trying to go up, trying to get beyond the suffering, beyond our 3D nature, into the vastness, into the greatness. So most of the teachings and religion, all those spirituality, all that is focused on that expansive up and out. But what we need to do is go down and in. So how do you take those puzzles and make it a part of your lived experience? How do you take all of that lessons that you've learned, incorporate it? How do you balance the dark and the light? How do you balance that infinite beingness to this physical reality, the mundane, the day-to-day life, that is? And that is your journey that you start taking back. Once you've been on that road for a while, you hit the dark night of the soul. Because now this is where another death awaits you. That whole death of you being in 3D, but you're actually from wherever, from heaven or from source or whatever. So that conflict has to die, the third death. Once you experience the third death, that's when you realize that everything is divine. The chair, the people, the dog, the other people, all your parts, all your us's, all the aspects of yourself, all of that. And you actually can just relax because it is what it is. It's just this. There's no up there or down there or inside or outside. All of it just becomes just this.
No form, no shape.
No form, well, form, shape, this form.
No, but the place that we're in.
Your paradox and your mind and trying to explain it and tell the story about what that experience was and how to incorporate that experience and be and live it. Okay, so let's go back to your alcoholic and helping alcoholics. So you go from that sphere and you want to share and give that and share, because that's what we do after we have an awakening. We want to tell the world, we want to share that, but then we still get angry and all kinds of stuff, so we're still human. And after a long time, and this is not a sudden, it's a very slow death.
The ego.
The ego and the scattered soul. So like the scattered soul that's half 1 foot in heaven, 1 foot on earth, and you're trying to have that paradox between the sober and the drunk person and whatever. Once you see them as just a person, not sober or drunk, then those two come together. Now that's a very long process, and it's dynamic and it goes up and down. And basically, once you achieve that,
Then you want to virtue.
apparently there's masters and ascended masters. So theoretically, an ascended master or a guru or a fully realized human is at that level.
Like Buddhists. You think they live?
Some of them fully realized, fully enlightened, and fully here in this body on earth and living it,
But have reached that level.
which has incorporated that level. There's no level. That level is this level. This is it. There's only this. There's events that happen. There's people, events, feelings, other us's, belief systems, but it's just this. So that is taking that puzzle pieces and bringing it all in, down and in. Because this is the up and out journey has been done. You had the awakening, you saw heaven, you met God, you know that you are one with everything. The oneness has been experienced, but you can't express it in words. But now you have to bring that down, as above, so below, as within, so without. So the without has to come within, the above has to come below. So it's the down in process. And that's post awakening. And that's what I was talking about with the dark side of awakening. Because that is the dark side. Because now you're dealing with all this. The old self, the pygmy in the mist that was running around in the jungle, cutting its way through things and struggling and fighting and doing all that kind of stuff, didn't know better. But now you have that idea, but you still have to go and get back home. So you're still going to have to cut through the jungle, jump over things like mission. But now it's not so easy anymore, because pre-awakening, pygmy in the mist, could blame others, could just throw their toys at and be nasty and all that kind of stuff. But post-awakening, all those things still come up. So you're still angry, nasty, say bad things, break somebody down, whatever. But now you know what you do, because you're able to step back and you go, but whoa, where did that come from? That's not very nice. So what we try to do is suppress all those things, because now we're enlightened beings and we love and light, and everything is like beautiful and the world's great and it's like rainbows and unicorns. So post-awakening, we expect heaven on earth, all happy. And we all, hey, Shua, we one with nature, and we one with this, and we one with everything. And yeah, until somebody blitzes you over the head and steals your phone, or whatever it is, or you write your car off, or your partner gives you shit in the marriage, or whatever, or like then all of a sudden, that is now what happened to that. So then we start the spiritual bypassing stuff. Then it's like, oh, but that wasn't me that happened to, because now I'm dissociating. So I'm way above that. I'm the star seed, or I'm like a light worker, or I'm this brilliant being that's seen the light and nothing can touch me. And none of this is actually happening to me. It's happening to that body down there. So now we're disembodying completely, because we're moving right and like dissociating ourselves, because now we're this perfect being. And this meat suit piece of shit down here is what's the problem. So, but then we start getting into that whole thing, and we're starting getting depressed every time we wake up. And it's like, damn, we're still in 3D, still in the meat suit. Here we go, one more time with the, okay, I have to go up, go get to work, blah, 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 make a living, because those things don't disappear. And that's the dark side of it, because before enlightenment, before awakening, that was just life. After awakening, this is like, how can this be? So now there's questions of like, how can bad things happen to good people? Why do I still have the same addictions? Why am I still smoking, drinking, having sex, blah, 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 whatever it was, gambling? Doesn't matter what your addiction was, or that didn't just magically go away. You're still there. You're still in this body. You still get sick. Your tooth gets sore, blood, you cut yourself, blah, whatever. Events still happen. And you're still reacting to all of that. So now we have to start picking up the pieces and reincorporating the pieces. So that means starting to look at the belief systems. What is bringing us pain? Why are we still engaging in addictive behavior? Why am I trying to spiritually bypass real life? And all those questions. Because then we can get trapped in, first of all, non-duality, which is there is no other us's. There's just this one us. So the beggar that comes up and flicks you out because you didn't give him money is still yours. It's still you. So you can't get upset. It's just you being you. And
Now that's what I was trying to ask you about in the kitchen.
I know. That's why I'm answering it slowly now. But I had to build the whole thing up first. I can't just give you the answer. I'm like trying to get through all the bigger picture of where you are in the journey. Because that question won't come up pre-awakening. Post-awakening, that comes up. And there's the dichotomy, and there's the paradox. So this is where we have to start balancing the dichotomy and the paradoxes, and find we're still on that pendulum swing. So as we start moving up on the pendulum swing, that's what we mean by gathering the pieces and of the puzzle, because now we're moving up to it. So we haven't got there to like pure consciousness, bliss, forever embodied in this form. We're still working our way up that pendulum. So we're still experiencing duality. And yes, we can go into moments of non-duality. And part of that experience is called awakening, when you become one with other people, the earth, the nature, everything around you, that bit of the I that disappears. That's why I asked you which I. The little I, the ego I, that is the one that's pre-awake, the pygmy in the mist? Or is it the human I, the one that had that experience, had a taste of home, has experienced the unity. That's why I said in the beginning, the absolute truth cannot be spoken. It can only be experienced. So whatever we say, the stories, all the other stuff, that's just pointing at the moon, but it's not the moon. To know what it's like on the moon, you have to go to the moon and be the moon. Otherwise, we're just pointing. So post-awakening, the pygmy in the mist has become the human. And the process of the dark night of the soul is to become fully human. That means incorporating all the other us's, personal us's, the voices in the head, the aspects, all of that we'll cover later. But also the collective us's, the ideas and influences from society, cultural, religious, archetypes, ancestral influences, all those things that affect us as humans, because it all makes up the self, what we perceive as the self, the me, myself, I. Then from the collective and dealing with unconscious, the subconscious, the collective unconscious, where you start dealing with everybody's shit, because a lot of that is post-awakening, is once you've sorted out your personal stuff, now you start working on the collective stuff. Basically, being human, you have to start working on humanity. First on your own humanity, what it means to be human, and then on humanity as a whole, what that means. And once there, then you can start working on your cosmic self. Your cosmic self is that balance between fear and love. So there's only the dualities. So the yin and yang, the feminine, masculine, the good, the bad, the positive, the negative, all of the dualities needs to be also incorporated into a balanced, positive, balanced, negative, once you get up in the middle of the pendulum. Because in that balanced swing, that is where the understanding of the cosmic principles come in, and the balancing of those two states between fear and love. And then we can start moving. The last little piece of the puzzle then is to put, when you incorporated all of that, then you can go beyond the I, beyond the me, myself, I, beyond the ego, beyond even the idea of having a soul that's separated from source. Because that's why the dark night of the soul is that you still believe there's separation. And then you can have the third death, which is then completely not overcoming all of that, but embodying all of that. That's where you become the master, the ascended master, because then you can leave, then you find liberation. Because there's all of the dualities is now in the yin-yang form. So you can see the circle, the white and the black, with the black in the white, and fear has love in it, and love has fear in it. So you see that and you become that. So it's in embodying and becoming the yin-yang circle in balance, which brings you contentment and peace and compassion. Not empathy, not pity, not anything for that, but just pure compassion. Because now you're really seeing others. You're seeing their struggle, you're seeing their path, you're seeing everything. But it's not affecting you. You feel it, you sense it, you are it. You can embody that completely. So at that level, then yes, you are one with the beggar. Because that's where the I disappears. That's a very different level. And then you truly let go of the I completely, which is then the fourth death. The fourth death is the physical death. When you drop the body, when you drop the mind, you drop all the belief systems, all those kind of things. So the mental, emotional, energetic body still maintains, so you're still the same person. But what drops is all the dross, all the emotions, all that kind of stuff, the disease, everything else sitting in the body, all the belief systems of being old, anger, bitterness, all that other stuff gets dropped. But you're still fully aware of your journey. So it's not a get out of jail free card, because you're still fully aware of your journey, the lessons that you were here to learn, what you learned, what you incorporated, what you didn't learn. So if you didn't get the lesson, then yeah, maybe you have to return, do it one more time with feeling. Or if you really didn't get it, you'll go into different planes and go work things out there. But that, yeah, it gets a bit esoteric or whatever, but normally we'll just stop there with that death. So that to me is the four deaths. Now, in each part of it, there's a different puzzle that we build. So as a baby, you're building the picture of 3D world. How do I do this? Why am I hungry? Where do I sleep? Whatever. Oh, I can go and do potty. Oh, I can make a sami. I have a mother and a dad, or whatever it is. People either look after me, or they're nasty to me, or they hurt me, or they're kind to me, or that's loving. So you're starting to build that picture of what 3D normal reality is. And you start building the ego. So that ego is you building up, using all of those experiences in life to build up a person, a self, an I, which has a story, which has a history, which has wants and needs and belief systems and do's and don'ts and all kinds of things. Fears and many us's, because it associates with the emotion that comes from the belief system. You become angry. I am angry at you. That you become that. It becomes yourself. You don't see it as another piece or part of yourself that is presenting anger. You're seeing it as yourself. So you take on that personality. That's why we confuse as hell. Yeah. Because now we're angry, now we're happy. We can be all happy. Oh, what a nice day. And something happens, and now I'm cross and angry, or I got a call, or the waiter was nasty to me, and now I'm all pissed off. So easy, like all of those things. But I was happy. I had such a nice dinner, and then this waiter came and was so rude to me and charged me extra, and now I'm really angry and pissed off and whatever it is. So now we're making up stories and we're believing our stories. And that builds the ego up. So the ego is not a bad thing. It's a way of navigating 3D. So when we have that first ego death, upon awakening to the higher realm, is like, okay, all of these things are not really me. There's events, I'm experiencing the events, I have emotions, I have thoughts, I have programs that run, I have belief systems, all those kind of things. And yes, they're still there. But how can I reframe some of them? How can I start looking if they're positive or negative? All those, like, that is where after awakening, now you take all those puzzle pieces that you ripped apart because you blew the whole ego up. Now you have to rebuild the ego. I mean, we need an ego. We can't just go without ego. We need an ego to survive. We need to eat, sleep, be aware of time, space, others.
But then be a nice person, a nice ego.
Not necessarily. Because what belief systems are still? Can you still be triggered? If somebody says something nasty to you, or you just, whoa, it's all fine. I'm a hollow weed, the wind blows right through. Or, fuck you! It's like, who you? Yeah. Who are you to talk to me like that? So, just being awakened doesn't mean that all of that stuff just gets magically dissolved.
It's the process.
Yeah, and that's the big mistake we make. And that brings us a lot of pain and suffering. Because you're always longing to go back home and you're like tired of this bullshit down here. And you don't want to lose your temper and you don't want to be ugly too. But there you are, still doing it. But this time it's worse because you know that you're doing it and you know you shouldn't be doing it. So now there's
Now
like
you're conscious of the fact how
bad it is. So now there's guilt and shame and everything on top of that. And you try really, really hard to be like this angelic, good person, light bringer to all. And yet still there it is. The shadows are still there. They're biting you in the ass. So now it's self-worth. Now you're starting to lose your self-worth even more than you did before because you know the right and wrong. You know where you've been. You know who you are. And you can see all these actions
and
that
you're still doing it.
you still do
Now
it.
you don't smoke yourself.
No, you don't smoke yourself at all. That's the dark night of the soul. That's post awakening.
I think that is where